you very much for that introduction. Good morning, everyone. So I am the CTO of SpectaCure. So I work with the technical and the clinical development in the company. So let me just also mention our CEO, Masoud Kayami, who has been the CEO for the company now for, I think, about the last 7 years or so. So some words about the introduction of SpectaCure. We're working with something called photodynamic therapy, PDT. It's a combination treatment where you use a light-sensitive drug and combine it with laser light. And you only get a therapeutic effect when you illuminate the tissue where you have the drug. But we're a medical device company, so we don't actually develop the drug. We use a drug that's already available, but we develop the laser system and the dose planning tools that are needed to perform this treatment. And we focus on the treatment of prostate cancer. So our company has now been around for about 15 years. It's based on research at Lund University that's been carried out for a long time, more than 25 years now. There has been more than 3,000 treatments done using PDT on superficial tumors. But the problem with PDT is that when you try to apply this on internal tumors, such as the prostate, it's difficult to get the light into the tumor because the light has a very poor or short penetration depth in tissues. So that's one of the main challenges of SpectaCure and which we have solved. So this is the board of directors of the company. So our chairman is Ingmar Kihlström. He has a background in the pharma industry. He's been working for some of the large pharma companies in Sweden. Masoud, our CEO, is on the board. And we have 3 of the founders also on the board: Sune Svanberg, Katarina Svanberg, and Stefan Andersson Engels. And these are presented on the next slide. So here they come. So Katarina Svanberg is now, she's retired from clinical work, but she's professor of oncology at Lund University. Sune Svanberg, her husband, is professor of physics at Lund University. And Stefan Andersson Engels, he was professor of physics at Lund University, but he's now moved recently to the Tyndall Institute in Ireland. We're working with a lot of external collaborations, consultants, but the main partners we have are the hospitals that we work with in our clinical trials. So these are our partner hospitals. We have the Skåne University Hospital in Lund, of course. We work with Princess Margaret Cancer Center in Toronto. University of Pennsylvania Hospital in Philadelphia, and University College London Hospital in the UK. And we're right now running a phase 1 clinical trial for locally recurring prostate cancer. And that trial is run at these 3 sites: Princess Margaret in Toronto, Penn in the US, and UCL Hospital in UK. The trial is, as many of you probably know, is up and running in Toronto. We've done a number of patients there. And we're just about to start treating patients also in London. And we are planning to start up patients also at Penn in a very, very short time. So before I go on describing where we are here, I will give a little background about PDT and how our treatment works. So PDT is a triple component treatment, actually. You need a drug, which we call sensitizer. You need light, and you need oxygen. The oxygen is always present in the body, so that's not something you have to supply, but you have to supply the drug and the light. And when you have all these 3 combined, you will get tumor death. So next up is a little movie of how the treatment works. So this shows the anatomy of the prostate. The yellow blob in this picture is the prostate. We use a template that guides needles into the prostate. And this is done by ultrasound imaging. So the surgeon can, during the procedure, see exactly where he's putting the needles. These needles are then guide these optical fibers into the tumor, where we can guide the laser light. So this is supposed to illustrate that the cancer tumor is killed. But the point is that we illuminate the laser light through the optical fibers. But we can also do measurements, perform measurements through the same fibers. And that is needed to perform the dose calculations that are needed to get the correct treatment. So this is a slide that shows what the treatment looks like. This is from Toronto, one of the treatments we performed recently there. The first slide shows treatment planning. The surgeon has to know where to treat, where the prostate is, where to put the needles. And we have developed a certain set of algorithms and the software for doing that. We call it iDose. Next up is the needle placement. This is done with ultrasound guidance. And you see the surgeon putting in the needles through this mechanical template. And in the third picture, you see the actual treatment going on. Those are the optical fibers that are led in through the needles into the prostate. So what the status in the trial. So it's a phase 1 trial, clinical trial with locally recurring prostate cancer. And we've treated 6 patients so far. And the purpose of this trial is to establish the correct drug and light dose. So we're escalating the dose to see until the point where we get a clear effect and we don't see any significant side effects of the treatment. So establishing the correct drug and light dose and evaluate the safety, those are the purposes of the trial. We have previously shown some preliminary outcomes. So we have, seen some very positive results on the patients that have received the high dose of the drug. So to the left, you see an MRI of the prostate before the treatment. So within the red circle is the prostate before the treatment, and to the right you see the prostate after treatment. So essentially we have no blood perfusion through the prostate after treatment, which is an indication that essentially the tissue is dead inside the prostate. So why are we looking at recurrent prostate cancer? Well, we see that as a strategic route to the market. So we're not focusing, at least not now, on primary treatment of prostate cancer. There is a clear clinical need because these patients who have recurrent prostate cancer, they don't have any good treatment options today. You cannot typically treat them with radiation again. You cannot do surgery on them because the tissue has been so compromised from the first radiation treatment that it's very difficult to perform surgery on these patients. So typically they only get hormone treatment, which is not a curative treatment. It's something that can prolong the life of the patient, but it also has some significant side effects. And this is also a large patient group, so it's it's an influential patient group. So these are the reasons why we're focusing on this indication. So that leads us a little bit to the background, the prostate cancer market. So there are about 600,000 men each year that are diagnosed with prostate cancer. And of that group, approximately 1/3 will get external beam radiotherapy. And from that group, approximately 1/3 again will have a recurrent cancer. And that's the group that we're looking at now, where there are no routine curative treatments on the market. And the hormone therapy that's typically done has some significant side effects. Then if you look at the other treatment options, I mean, the big one is surgery, of course. About 50% of all cases will have surgery. And if you don't get that, you might just wait. You have active surveillance is one option, or you can have one of the other treatment options which are not really that common. So the technology that we have, we call our system the SpectaCure P18 system with iDose. So it allows to use up to 18 optical fibers that are put into the prostate. And there's one laser connected to each of these optical fibers. The system has an optical switch that allows us to switch between treatment mode and monitoring or diagnostic mode. And that's something that's unique for SpectaCure. We have several patents that cover this technology. We also have this iDose software for treatment planning and for dose monitoring. And there are several parts of that that are also covered by several patents. So that's also very important for us. Some of the advantages of using this method is that it's a minimally invasive procedure. There's no open surgery involved. The recovery is fairly quick. It's a repeatable treatment. Unlike traditional radiotherapy, you cannot repeat that, but our treatment is repeatable. There is a low risk of severe side effects connected to the drug. The drug that we use is already approved worldwide. It has a very well-established safety profile. And there is no ionizing radiation involved in the treatment that could also potentially be dangerous. The system technology is relatively low cost. I mean, the manufacturing cost is relatively low. If you compare, for example, the machinery that's needed for radiation therapy, which is relatively expensive. Some of the market background. So the total global market for prostate cancer treatment and prevention is about $50 billion today, and it's expected to rise to $63 billion in 4 years. There are more than 2,000 clinics in the US that offer a similar type of therapy called brachytherapy. Brachytherapy is also a therapy where you insert needles into the prostate, but in that case you insert radioactive seeds into the prostate rather than the optical fibers that we use. But sort of the logistics and the practical way of doing the procedure is similar in brachytherapy. So that will make it, we think, easier for the hospitals and the clinics to adopt our technology because they don't have to make a big leap into some new technology. There are a few treatment options for recurrent prostate cancer, and there is an active. The health authorities are actively seeking new treatments. There is also a trend in prostate cancer care of quality of life and not only survival, because the traditional treatments, radiotherapy and surgery, they are associated with some side effects that are not very attractive. So our business model, we don't intend to sell the actual device. We intend to sell treatments, and the treatment package would then consist of consumables needed for the treatment, and that would be optical fibers and needles. It will also come with a one-time use of the laser device, and the laser device would then be provided either on a loan or as a lease or something like that. The drug that we use is called verteporfin. The trade name is Visidyne. The patent for the drug has expired, so in principle you could develop a generic version of it. We could either, the hospitals could either acquire that by prescription, or we could license it in and use it, provide it together with our treatment package. So the initial market that we're looking at is these 60,000 patients with recurrent cancer in the US and the EU. We're looking at the cost of this treatment of about 35,000 euros. And that would make this total worth of this market about 2 million euros. But we are, this is what we aim to launch the product for, the recurrent cancers. But we're further on, we're looking at the primary cancer market. And so if we look at this picture again, we would like to get this chunk on the right, where you have these patients that are now doing other types of treatments, and get a piece of that market as well. And that's a very big market. I mean, the recurrent cases are only about maybe 10% of the total. But if we could get to the other 90%, that would be a huge market for us. We have a number of patents that protect our technology. We have 5 patents that cover the hardware, the laser instrumentation, and so on. We have 2 patents for consumables. That's the sterile optical fibers and the needles. And we have 5 patents that cover the iDose algorithms and the software. And we have patents now that, I think the last one expires in 2032, and we have a number of ideas now in the lab that we are planning to file new patent applications for. So that was my last slide. So with that, I'd like to thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Johannes. This is a very interesting concept, and a very interesting market, of course, as well. Your clinical trial that's going on, you said you have treated 6 patients.
Yes.
Is that right? How many will you treat? What's the scope of the trial?
So this is a dose escalation trial. So there's no fixed number of patients. It depends on how high we have to go in dose. Okay. But for the last patients that we've treated now, we think we are getting close to the final dose. Okay. The forecast now is that there will not be so many patients more to treat.
You see the light in the tunnel. So
yeah.
Sorry, no pun intended. And the patient group, you showed us how big the original group is, and then it funnels down to the recurrent group, and some do get hormone treatment there. So how big exactly is the subpopulation that you will be targeting? In the first.
So it's hard to get exact numbers here because the statistics are very variable in different countries and so on. Oh, yeah. But we're looking at maybe 50 to 60% of those 60,000 patients per year that we think could be eligible for our treatments. Okay, and competition-wise, you mentioned that there are no curative options. There's hormones and of course other options as surgery. So, but in this field that you're active in, what are you up against? Well, in PDT, there is no competition that does exactly what we're doing. This type of dose planning and laser systems that we have, that makes us quite alone in the market. There are companies working, pharma companies working with developing these kind of drugs that are used for the treatment. There was one phase 3 trial published, I think, about 2 years ago on prostate cancer in the UK that showed promising results. That was not for recurrent prostate. It was primary, low risk, but still it showed that the method is viable for doing on prostate cancer. So we don't necessarily see them as a competitor. I think it's good to have a few players in this market that can show that it's a useful technology. That should also raise awareness and interest. And speaking of interest, and if you can repeat these promising results that you've seen so far, and you think that would ring a bell at the offices of some bigger players, perhaps? Yeah, we have 2 options for, continuing the development. One would be to carry through a phase 2 and a phase 3 trial ourselves, and then go to the market. But I think a more likely scenario is that we will partner up with a larger player, either in the pharma or in the medtech industry, that will support the late development of this program. Yeah. And
if that scenario plays out, are you looking for a specialty company, or are you just looking for the biggest player possible, so to speak?
I mean, I think we're looking at the company with a. I mean, it should be a fairly big company, but with a good match for our technology as well.
Yeah. And as of now, what would you consider to be the most important triggers or milestones coming up for SpectaCure?
Yeah, so the most important one, of course, is to finish the phase 1. And by saying finish, I mean that we will perform the last patient treatment in phase 1. Because then there will be a 12-month follow-up after each patient. But we don't have to wait 12 months before we can start the phase 2 trial.
No.
We only have to wait 1 month to see the acute possible side effects. After that, we can initiate the phase 2 trial.
Okay.
So that would be by the end of this year, maybe start of next year, something like that.
And will these trials be made, is it locally, or do you work with international studies?
Yeah, so as it looks now, I think because we have now developed this very good collaboration with these 3 hospitals, I mean the Toronto, Philadelphia and London. So the plan is to continue the phase 2 trial at least with those hospitals, maybe add another one or so. It would be nice to work with someone more local here in Sweden. Depends on whether they are available. I mean, they might have competing trials and so on with this patient population. But
yeah. And speaking of that and competing trials, and sometimes it can be hard to actually, well, if there's not patient material enough, so to speak. How do you see it? Or do you see a lot of interest from participants? We
do, but it's always a problem that, I mean, there are lots of men with prostate cancer, but you have to fit into all these criteria that are defined by the protocol of the phase 1 trial or the phase 2 trial, and so a lot of them have to be excluded because they don't fit into the criteria. So I mean, enrolling patients is a bit of a challenge, and also because the actual procedure that we perform, we need to be in an operating room, and we need a lot of staff. I mean, we need nurses, we need doctors, and so on. And just planning that and make a reservation for a time where every one of these specialists can be at the same time, it's a bit challenging. And that's why we have been seeing some delays now in the trial. But it looks very promising now. We have a number of patients now that are lining up in the trials that hopefully will be treated in a very short time. So.
Okay. Thank you very much, Johannes, for coming here today.